Well, hello guys. Happy Monday. Congrats to everybody in Minnesota who finished their first day of distance learning. I know a lot of people started today, families, teachers, students. Nice job. We are in this together and we are going to do it. I know not everything was perfect for me today, but we're getting there and everybody's doing an awesome job just being patient with each other. So, enough of our own adventures for today. Let's take a break and let's see where Bilbo's ventures are taking him. Remember, he just finished a riddle war with Gollum, and he's looking for something and can't find it. Where is it? Where is it? Bilbo heard him crying. Lost is my precious, lost. Curse us and crush us, my precious is lost. What's the matter? Bilbo called. What have you lost? You mustn't ask us, shrieked Gollum. Now it's business. Now, Gollum, it's lost. Gollum, Gollum, Gollum. Well, so am I, cried Bilbo, and I want to get unlost, and I won the game, and you promised, so come along. Come and let me out, and then go on with your looking. Utterly miserable as Gollum sounded, Bilbo could not find much pity in his heart, and he had a feeling that anything Gollum wanted so much could hardly be something good. Come along, he shouted. No, not yet, precious, Gollum answered. We must search for it. It's lost, Gollum. But you never guessed my last question, and you promised, said Bilbo. Never guessed, said Gollum. Then suddenly, out of the gloom, came a sharp hiss. What has it got in its pockets? Tell us that. It must tell first. As far as Bilbo knew, there was no particular reason why he should not tell. Gollum's mind had jumped to a guess quicker than his. Naturally, for Gollum had been brooding for ages on this one thing. He was always afraid of it being stolen. But Bilbo was annoyed at the delay. After all, he had won the game, pretty fairly at a horrible risk. Answers were to be guessed, not given, he said. But it wasn't a fair question, said Gollum. Not a riddle, precious, no. Oh, well, if it's a matter of ordinary questions, Bilbo replied, then I asked one first. What have you lost? Tell me that. What has it got in his pocket? The sound came hissing louder and sharper as he looked towards him, and to his alarm, Bilbo now saw two small points of light peering at him. As suspicion grew in Gollum's mind, the light of his eyes burned with a pale flame. What have you lost? Bilbo persisted. But now the light in Gollum's eyes had become a green fire, and it was coming swiftly nearer. Gollum was in his boat again, paddling wildly back to the dark shore, and such a rage of loss and suspicion was in his heart that no sword had any more terror for him. Bilbo could not guess what had maddened the wretched creature, but he saw that all was up, and that Gollum meant to murder him at any rate. Just in time he turned and ran blindly back up the dark passage down which he had come, keeping close to the wall and feeling it with his left hand. What has he got in his pockets? He heard them hiss louder behind him, and the splash as Gollum leapt from the boat. What have I? Why wonder? He said to himself as he panted and stumbled along. He put his left hand in his pocket. That's actually Bilbo who said that. What have I wonder? He said to himself. As he panted and stumbled along, he put his left hand in his pocket. The ring felt very close, and this quietly slipped onto his groping forefinger. The hiss was close behind him. He turned now and saw Gollum's eyes like small green lamps coming up the slope. Terrified, he tried to run faster, but suddenly he struck his toes on a snag in the floor, and fell flat with his little sword under him. In a moment, Gollum was on him, but before Bilbo could do anything, recover his breath, pick himself up, or wave his sword, Gollum passed by, taking no notice of him, cursing and whispering as he ran. What could it mean? Gollum could see in the dark. Bilbo could see the lights of his eyes, palely shining even from behind. Painfully he got up and sheathed his sword, which was now glowing faintly again. Then, very cautiously, he followed. There seemed nothing else to do. It was no good crawling back down to Gollum's water. Perhaps if he had followed him, Gollum might lead him some way of escape without meaning to. "Curse it! Curse it! Curse it!" hissed Gollum. "Curse the Baggins! It's gone! What has it got in its pockets, sis? Oh, we guess, my precious. He's found it, yes, he must have. My birthday present!" Bilbo pricked up his ears. He was at last beginning to guess himself. He hurried a little, getting as close as he dared behind Gollum, who was still going quickly, not looking back but turning his head from side to side, as Bilbo could see from the faint glimmer on the walls. "My birthday present! Curse it! How did we lose it, my precious? Yes, that's it! When we came this way last, when we twisted that nasty young squeaker. That's it! Curse it! It slipped from us after all these ages and ages. It's gone! Gollum!" Suddenly, Gollum sat down and began to weep, a whistling and gurgling sound horrible to listen to. Bilbo halted and flattened himself against the tunnel wall. After a while, Gollum stopped weeping and began to talk. He seemed to be having an argument with himself. "It's no good going back there to search. No, we don't remember all the places we visited. And it's no use. The Bagginses has gotten it in his pockets. The nasty noser has found it, we says. We guesses, precious. Only guesses. We can't know till we find the nasty creature and squeezes it. But it doesn't know what the present can do, does it? It'll just keep it in its pocket, sis. It doesn't know, and it can't go far. It's lost itself, the nasty nosy thing. It doesn't know the way out. It said so. It said so, yes, but it's tricksy. It doesn't say what it means. It won't say what it's got in its pockets. I knows. It knows the way in. It must know the way out. Yes, it's off to the back door. To the back door, that's it. The goblins will catch it then. I can't get out that way, preciouses. Gollum, goblins is. Yes, but if they've got the present, it's a precious present. The goblins will get it, Gollum. They'll find it. They'll find out what it does. We shan't ever be safe again. Never, Gollum. One of the goblins will put it on, and then no one will see him. He'll be there, but not seen. Not even our clever eyes will notice him. And he'll come creepsy and trixies and catch us, Gollums. Gollums. Then let's stop, precious. Let make haste. If Baggins has gone that way, we must go quick and see. Go now, far now. Make haste. With a spring, Gollum got up and started shambling off at a great pace. Bilbo hurried after him, still cautiously, though his chief fear now was of tripping on another snag and falling with a noise. His head was in a whirl of hope and wonder. It seemed that this ring was a magic ring. It made you invisible. He had heard of such things, of course, in old tales, but it was hard to believe that he really had found one by accident. Still, there it was. Gollum, with his bright eyes, had passed him by, only a yard to one side. On they went, Gollum flip-flopping ahead, hissing and cursing, Bilbo behind, going as softly as a hobbit can. Soon they came to a place where, as Bilbo had noticed on the way down, side passages opened, this way and that. Gollum began at once to count them. 1 left, yes. 1 right, yes. 2 right, yes, yes. 2 left, yes, yes. And so on and on. And the count grew, he slowed down, and he began to get shaky and weepy, for he was leaving the water further and further behind, and he was getting afraid. Goblins might be about, and he lost his ring. At last he stopped by a low opening, and there left they went as they went up. 7 right, yes. 6 left, yes, he whispered. This is it. This is the way to the back door. Yes, here's the passage. He peered in and shrank back. But we dursn't go in, precious. No, we dursn't. Goblins down there, lots of goblins. Yes, we smells them. What shall we do? Curse them and crush them. We must wait here, precious. Wait a bit and see. So they came to a dead stop. Gollum had brought Bilbo to the way out after all, but Bilbo could not get in. There was Gollum sitting humped up right in the opening, and his eyes gleaming cold in his head. as he swayed it from side to side between his knees. Bilbo crept away from the wall more quietly than a mouse, but Gollum stiffened at once and sniffed, and his eyes went green. He hissed softly but menacingly. He could not see the hobbit, but now he was on the alert, and he had other senses that the darkness had sharpened, hearing and smell. He seemed to be crouched right down with his flat hands laid on the floor, and his head thrust out, nose almost to the stone. Though he was only a black shadow in the gleam of his own eyes, Bilbo could see or feel that he was tense as a bowstring, gathering for a spring. Bilbo almost stopped breathing and went stiff himself. He was desperate. He must get away, out of this horrible darkness, while he had any strength left. He must fight. He must stab the foul thing, put its eyes out, kill it, and means to kill him. No, not a fair fight. He was invisible now. Gollum had no sword. Gollum had not actually threatened to kill him, or tried to yet. And he was miserable, alone, lost. A sudden understanding, a pity mixed with horror, welled up in Bilbo's heart. A glimpse of endless, unmarked days without light or hope of betterment. Hard stone, cold fish, sneaking and whispering. All these thoughts passed in a flash of a second. He trembled. And then quite suddenly another flash, as if lifted by a new strength and resolve. He leaped. No great leap for a man, but a leap in the dark. Straight over Gollum's head he jumped, 7 feet forward and 3 in the air indeed. He had known it. He only just missed cracking his skull. Had he known it, he had only just missed cracking his skull on the low arch of the passage. Gollum threw himself backwards and grabbed at the hobbit, flew over him, but too late. His hand snapped on thin air, and Bilbo, falling fair on his sturdy feet, sped off down the new tunnel. He did not turn to see what Gollum was doing. There was a hissing and cursing almost at his heels at first, then it stopped. All at once, there came a blood-curdling streak, filled with hatred and despair. Gollum was defeated. He dared go no further. He had lost his prey, and lost, too, the only thing he had ever cared for, his precious. The cry brought Bilbo's heart to his mouth, but still he held on. Now faint as an echo, but menacing. The voice came behind. Thief! 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 Baggins! We hates it! We hates it! We hates it forever! Then there was a silence, but that too seemed menacing to Bilbo. If goblins are so near that he smelt them, he thought, then they'll have heard his shrieking and cursing. Careful now, or they will lead you to worse things. This passage was low and roughly made. It was not too difficult for the hobbit, except when, in spite of all care, he stubbed his poor toes again, several times on nasty jagged stones on the floor. A bit low for goblins, at least for the big ones, thought Bilbo, not knowing that even the big ones, the orcs of the mountain, go along at a great speed, stooping low with their hands, almost, on the ground. Soon the passage that had been sloping down began to go up again, and after a while it climbed steeply. That slowed Bilbo down. But at last the slope stopped, the passage turned a corner and dipped down again, and there, at the bottom of a short incline, he saw, filtering round another corner, a glimpse of light. Not red light as fire of lantern, but a pale, out-of-doors sort of light. Then Bilbo began to run. Scuttling as fast as his legs would carry him, he turned the last corner and came, suddenly, right into an open space, where the light, after all that time in the dark, seemed dazzlingly bright. Really, it was only a leak of sunshine in through a doorway, when a great door, a stone door, was left standing open. Bilbo blinked, and then suddenly he saw the goblins in full armor with drawn swords sitting just inside the door, and watching it with wide eyes and watching the passage that led to it. They were aroused, alert, ready for anything. They saw him sooner than he saw them. Yes, they saw him. Whether it was an accident or a last trick of the ring before it took a new master, it was not on his finger. With yells of delight, the goblins rushed upon him. A pang of fear and loss, like an echo of Gollum's misery, smote Bilbo, and forgetting even to draw his sword, he struck his hand in his pockets, and there was the ring still, in his left pocket, and it slipped on his finger. The goblins stopped short. They could not see a sign of him. He had vanished. They yelled twice as loud as before, but not so delightedly. "Where is it?" they cried. Go back up the passage, someone shouted. This way, someone yelled. That way, others yelled. Look out for the door, bellowed the captain. Whistles blew, armor clashed, swords rattled, goblins cursed and swore and ran hither and thither, falling over one another and getting very angry. There was a terrible outcry, to-do and disturbance. Bilbo was dreadfully frightened, but he had the sense to understand what had happened and to sneak behind a big barrel which held drink for the goblin guards. And so, get out of the way and avoid being bumped into, trampled to death, or caught by fear. I must get to the door, I must get to the door, he kept saying to himself. But it was a long time before he ventured to try. Then it was like a horrible game of blindman's bluff. The place was full of goblins running around, and the poor little hobbit dodged this way and that, was knocked over by a goblin who could not make out who had bumped into, scrambled all way on all fours, slipped between the legs of the captain just in time, got up, and ran for the door. It was still ajar, but a goblin had pushed it nearly to. Bilbo struggled, but he could not move. He tried to squeeze through the crack. He squeezed, and he stuck. It was awful. His buttons had got wedged on the edge of the door and the doorpost. He could see outside in the open air. There were a few steps running down into a narrow valley between tall mountains. The sun came from behind a cloud and shone bright on the door, but he could not get through. Suddenly, one of the goblins inside shouted, There's a shadow by the door! Something is inside, outside. Bilbo's heart jumped into his mouth. He gave a terrific squirm. Buttons burst off in all directions. He was through, with a torn coat and waistcoat, leaping down the steps like a goat, while bewildered goblins were still picking up his nice brass buttons on the doorstep. Of course, they soon came down after him, hooting and howling and hunting among the trees. But they don't like the sun. It makes their legs wobble and their heads giddy. They could not find Bilbo with the ring on, slipping in and out of the shadows of the trees, running quick and quiet and keeping out of the sun. So soon they went back, grumbling and cursing, to guard the door. Bilbo had escaped. Whoa! That is the end of the chapter. That was intense. We are on to chapter 6. Out of the frying pan and into the fire is the title. I think we will stop there for today, since we've all been doing a little extra learning today. And we will check back in tomorrow to see what does it mean, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Also, where are all of Bilbo's friends and Gandalf? Hopefully we can find out tomorrow. Have a great rest of the night. I hope you guys got outside and enjoyed it while practicing social distancing. But it is beautiful, and I am planning to go and sit outside right now. Maybe go for a bike ride. So, have a good rest of the night, a good day tomorrow, and know, wherever you are loved. Bye.